Welcome to the Glow Up Girl podcast, the show where purpose meets inspiration. Each week, I sit down with incredible individuals who open up about their real life journeys, the wins, the setbacks, and the lessons in between. Whether you're navigating career moves, entrepreneurship, or personal growth, you're in the right place. I'm Kyra Mitchell Lewis, your host, and I'm so glad you're here. Let's glow up together. Also, suffering apparently from froggy voice this morning. Happy Thursday, my friends. I hope you all are doing well. Hope everyone's having a fantastic day, no matter where you are in the world. I'm so glad that you're here. All right, let's dive into today's guest. I'm so excited to welcome Cat Holt. Cat is the founder and CEO of Coologee Inc., where she helps entrepreneurs and organizations bring bold ideas to life through creative business, brand, and marketing strategy. With a background in building brands that stand out, Cat empowers women to find their voice, clarify their vision, and scale their impact. Passionate about storytelling and innovation, she guides clients to transform their businesses into platforms for change and growth. All right, you know how much I love having conversations about the space of marketing and branding. So let's go ahead and bring Kat in and dive into the conversation. All right, welcome back, and let's welcome Kat to the show.
Hi, Kyra. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, me too. I'm so excited because I love everything you do. And as I mentioned right before, I love talking to a fellow marketer and someone who works in the industry. It's always exciting to just have those conversations, especially when your work is aligned in trying to help entrepreneurs and businesses to find their voice. So let's dive in by having you start by telling our audience listening or watching who you are and what you do.
Well, I'm going to start by saying that I am a single mother of three amazing teenagers. They're all girls, ages 16, 17, and 19. And I spent a lot of time making sure that they can also glow up too. So I align with what you're trying to do for everybody. I started in marketing and advertising a long time ago, over 25 years ago, working in advertising agencies in Boston and New York City. And I ended up there because I was a psychology major. But I am the kind of person that once there's a solution to a problem, we just need to get it done. And the idea of sitting and talking about the same problems over and over again just didn't fit my personality. I was fortunate enough to have been a painter earlier on and also a musician. And so when I went to my advisor and said, I just don't know what I'm supposed to do when I grow up, he said, well, you do psychology and you're creative, so you should go into advertising. And I have, and I haven't looked back. But the interesting part about it is that because I'm so driven by psychology and by narratives that kind of make sense or hit you in some way, in a positive way, I've been constantly sort of swimming upstream to influence decisions that companies make in order to be able to have a mutually beneficial relationship
Mm,
with the audiences that they serve. And that journey took me to Cleveland, Ohio. I went in-house and ran all marketing strategy for Progressive Insurance. Had the great fortune of launching the Dr. Rick Turning Into Your Parents campaign. And then COVID happened. It was better to come back east. So a friend of mine who I had met through work, we decided to start our own company. And so we launched Coologee in 2021 as a different kind of strategic marketing agency that helps organizations build and protect their brands and do so in a way that's much, much bigger than a logo, a name, a color palette, and some
mhm.
fonts. And so I've been doing that for over 4 years, and I'm so glad I made the decision to become my own entrepreneur.
Awesome. I love that. First of all, let me just say with so many other people, I'm sure love the Dr. Rick campaign. It is so funny. There's never a moment that it's not funny. Like, everything about it is, like, it's so relatable, and it's just so funny because it's like, no matter what age you are, you have probably almost done one of those things or have done those things.
I mean, I am so fortunate because I had
Mhm,
been working at the creative agency that made those spots.
mhm,
So I consider myself the strategic architect, but those
mhm,
guys at Arnold, they're some of the best creative storytellers in the world. And so that they turned the idea of what do you do when you grow up? We tend to look to our parents,
mhm.
and turned it into that insight of, yeah, you know what? We start to kind of act like our parents. I remember starting when I did. I remember I caught myself, a reflection of myself in the early winter morning in a bathrobe, which, by the way, pretty much after that, I decided I was never going to put a bathrobe on again. You know, putting the cereal boxes on the table for my 3 little kids as they were getting ready for school, and I looked up and I thought I saw my mom, and I thought, "Oh my god, we really do become our parents, don't we?" And so that campaign is great, and it kinda shows the notion of you can ground really good creative and psychological insights,
Mhm,
because we always say, it's funny because it's true,
mhm.
and that's the best part about it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that. Well, let's talk about the work that you do now and how you work with entrepreneurs. So, you specialize in brand, and marketing strategy. Why do you think it's so hard for entrepreneurs? Why do they struggle with articulating like what their brand is or who they are as a brand?
You know, when we think about entrepreneurs, it's so personal. It
Mhm,
takes a lot of courage and conviction to go it on your own. So
mhm,
you kind of have to believe in what you're doing, unless you're a serial entrepreneur, and then you kind of already have your system in place. That
mhm,
doesn't mean serial entrepreneurs can't benefit from doing it even better. But and so what ends up happening is the entrepreneur's brand is sort of another articulation of the founder's personal brand.
mhm,
And when we think about that, a person has to relate to the folks that they're talking with, and how they show up changes over time.
mhm,
When you're talking about a organization brand, it has to have a little bit more of those guideposts,
mhm,
so that you build an understanding of who you are over time. We get bored of a brand position or a
mhm,
campaign way before our audiences do, because we just see it all the time and we get bored
right.
with it, but they don't.
Mhm,
And so I think part of it is that sticking to a story can be hard. But
mhm,
the other reason, and I think that, as humans, we can relate to this. Sometimes we have a hard time seeing what is best about ourselves because we're all stuck up in
mm,
our heads.
mhm,
And oftentimes, entrepreneurs try to do it on their own because they have this individualistic personality. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing it on their own.
yeah.
But they don't always see it through somebody else's eyes. And so sometimes
Mhm,
they don't actually hit on the value proposition or the position or the message that is going to really get people to take notice and want to have a further conversation. And so
mhm,
it's the, hey, you can't move all the time, combined with this notion of you don't always see what's best in you. It sometimes requires somebody else to do
mhm,
that.
mhm.
That can make it really hard for entrepreneurs. And there's always that money question too. Like, do I have the money to do it? Is this
Yep.
something that I need to invest in? So that's what I see typically when I'm working with entrepreneurs.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that is, so true, and I think I've noticed it, more as, like, doing contract, work and partnering with entrepreneurs that it's always the thing where it's like
Sorry. Do you want to do that again? My speaker's just powered off. You
Oh,
said
no,
you
no.
find it hard because you see the same thing with
Yeah,
entrepreneurs.
like, I see that a lot where it's like, if you especially if they're, like, not a business, but more of, like, a person who's an entrepreneur who has a company, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, well, I need help, like, determining my brand story, like, what it is," and then they will sort of pick out all these things that aren't the thing, like, it's not
Mhm,
the thing that attracts people and to them, and then when you come in, and I'm like, "Well, I immediately, just in talking to you, think that maybe like, who you are as a person is really important. Like the services you offer are great, but people are going to connect to just who you are as a human and what you do and what you put out for the world to see. And it's really hard for them to see that because most times they're like, well, this is the service, and I really want to make sure that we're promoting my service so that that's how I'm going to get business. And I'm like, yeah, you're going to get that just from like, the trickle down. Like,
100%.
introduce people to you and the story you tell and who you are, and let them see who you are, and then your people will come to you. Like, they'll come to you. And I think that's interesting because I've seen that here recently over the last few months with some people that I've, like, started to work with, and then also, like you said, it's always, the money because it's like, can I afford to, like, they don't know if they want to invest in this, and I'm like, if you invest in this one time and you
Mhm.
get the story and the right story, then you can take it and you can run with it from there. But it's oftentimes just people being able to see the value, I think, a lot of times in defining what that story is.
I totally agree with you. And what's interesting too is entrepreneurs are often looking to raise funding.
Mhm,
And the beauty of having a brand strategy that's grounded in business strategy is that if you do it well, these funders, whether venture capital or equity partners, they see pitches all of the time.
mhm,
They can see when somebody understands it, when you have that clarity of purpose, when you have the ability to have a vision that reflects what you do best and also differentiates you in the marketplace. Because what you're doing is you're establishing confidence
mhm,
that if I put a dollar into this company, then it's going to have some kind of return. And so many of the venture capital and equity partner investments won't yield a profit. And so they're managing a portfolio too.
mhm,
So doing branding at the very, very, very beginning, when you think about it as a business strategy, can actually allow for you as an organization to secure funding faster, to have more success in a launch campaign, and to be
mhm,
able to attract, as you said, it's almost like a beacon, attract the kind of customer or audience that is going to benefit the most from you.
mhm,
So that work up front is incredibly important for both long-term and also short-term success.
mhm, mhm. Yes. So as we're talking about these sort of ingredients, like what do you see as the most important ingredients for a brand, for building a brand that feels authentic and impactful?
Mm. So I always advocate for brands that reflect the culture within an organization.
Mm,
And one of the reasons is because a lot of companies will invest significant dollars to protect and preserve a culture.
right.
So they already have that muscle.
Mhm,
And as we've already talked about, we're working in a world in which it's people having conversations with people. I'm going to put the AI bots to the side for a second. But if you think about, our journalistic network, particularly in the United States, but I think this is true globally, has
mhm,
been decimated. The desire to have publication platforms that are profitable has really meant that there aren't as many journalists that are chasing down the stories anymore.
right.
And so the way a brand gets its story out tends to be in social media platforms.
Mhm,
Well, we as humans don't go to social media to engage with a brand. We go there to engage with people. And
mhm,
so a brand has to understand, well, how do I tell the story of who I am and what's important to me and what's going to be important to you? How am I going to treat you? What is the promise of the products I'm delivering? Why can you feel confident that we're going to do what we say? Well, it has to be congruent with that culture because that's how you're going to do it. And
mhm,
so it's often about telling that story of the culture externally so that there is consistency, clarity, and continuity for
mhm,
everything that you do. And it's not as hard. It doesn't feel as hard as a
mhm.
business leader when you have that.
Right, right. Yeah. I think, oh, I'm sorry. Were you
No, go
getting
for it.
ready to say, oh, yeah.
No.
No, I agree with you. I think that, um people showing up on, social media. And I think sometimes too, especially when you think about social media, it's like, well, people aren't, like you said, they're not going there because, I mean, if you happen to be a brand that really is doing it well and it's like a conversation, like I think about like something like Dunkin' Donuts, right? Like they do a really good job, and especially when they bring in the Spidey thing in October and he takes over the account. And it's so funny because this morning my sister sent me a post from them where it was like, this coffee's for all the eldest daughters, the ones who keep it all together. And of course it resonated. I'm the oldest daughter. So I was like, oh,
Guilty.
yeah, I was like, "Oh my god, yes, yes, thank you." And it's like, but not every brand can do that online, and people have to realize, like, not every person will come to your Instagram or, TikTok and feel like, "Oh, yeah, like, this is it, I found it," right? I mean, it's very rare that brands can have that same feel of community, like, in all the spaces. The culture, like you said, it, like, is beaming through, like, every touch point, and people feel like you can go there and those are, like, my people. Like, for the most part, it's not happening. It's very rare. So, you do have to make sure in all those other places, like, other touch points that I think a lot of times, like, people forget about, like, the power of email. Like, the
Mhm.
power of a great email, like, email community, having a strong, engaged community on email and communicating with them there, to me is like run circles around people on social media because most
Yeah,
because most of the times people on social media, unless you're like sponsoring, boosting a post, they're not even going to see it now.
100%. And you know what's interesting? This is gonna be like, if you don't mind me going down a rabbit hole for
Do it, girl.
so I had the great fortune of working with Hill Holiday, who were the creators of the Dunkin' brand.
Yeah.
And in fact, had the opportunity to launch the Dunkin' Donuts coffee brand in
Hmm.
grocery stores.
Oh, okay.
This is when P&G had owned it. They had since sold it off.
Hmm.
They got out of the coffee business, and I had the great fortune of being taught brand planning, or account planning, as sometimes it's called,
Hmm.
by a guy named Justin Holloway, who has gone back to England. But he's the one that came up with America Runs on Duncan.
Mm.
And what the reason I wanted to bring up the story is because you were just talking about the fact that it feels like it's my people. There's a sense of community.
Hmm.
Well, that brand's entire value proposition is it's for the regular people.
Mm.
And we actually did research where we, asked Dunkin' fans to go to Starbucks and Starbucks fans to go to
Uh-huh.
Dunkin' for a week,
Hmm.
and then got their feedback. And they, at the time, were not the same people at all,
Hmm.
because the folks that were tried and true Dunkin' people were like, I just want to go in and ask for my coffee and leave.
Hmm.
Why does it have to be so fancy? Why do I have to learn the new
Mm.
language? And
Okay.
the Starbucks people were saying, it's just not fancy enough. Like, I wanna
Uh-huh.
have that ritual. I wanna have
Yeah.
that way to do a modification that's just mine, and I like that experience of
Mm-hmm.
going
Mm-hmm.
in. And so this notion of America Runs on Dunkin' was this notion that it's for the everyday person, the hardworking people, the
Mm-hmm.
doctors, the nurses, the lawyers, the firemen, the police
Mm-hmm.
officers, and particularly in New England, you have a hard time driving 5 miles without bumping into 1, 2, or 3 Dunkin' Donuts because
Mm.
of the fact that there's such a high demand for it.
Okay.
Um, but I would also say that any brand can act that way.
Mhm.
And what you're also tapping into, you'd ask me about ingredients, really understand who your audience is,
Mhm.
because you have to be part of their community too.
Mhm.
And you're right. Social was something where organically we used to be able to get in front of people and be found. But
Mhm.
all of them have been monetized. All of the platforms, all the Meta, the Facebook, the Instagram, the LinkedIn, the TikTok, um,
Mhm.
they're all trying to make money. And so you cannot be found organically without some kind of boosting strategy.
Mhm.
Um, You can, but it's very, very difficult and slow
Right.
going
Yeah.
because, the numbers are awful. Like, if you have, 100,000 followers, which would be a lovely problem to have,
Right.
within those platforms, 5% or fewer will be shown anything that you post.
Right. Mhm.
And so it is tricky. So you have to think about things like email,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
you also have to think about platforms like Reddit or
Mhm. Mhm.
Discord or the places people are going to engage with other people.
Right.
But then you have to figure out how you want to show up and
Yes.
show up in a way that's like adding to the conversation,
Mhm.
not interrupting it.
Yes.
And that can be hard for business owners to feel comfortable doing because there's
Mhm.
so much pressure on the sale. And
Mhm.
there's so much concern about how does my brand show up and
Mhm.
being almost like a little bit too precious with it when the
Mhm.
reality is saying this is for the firstborn daughters, that's having fun,
Right.
right? That's
Yes.
enjoying it. That's saying, "I see you, girl. Like, I gotcha." And I think every single brand can do that if you know who you are.
Mhm. And I love something that you said that I will always go down, like, no matter where I've worked, what work I do, even working with, like, smaller businesses or small entrepreneurs, I'm like, "You have to know who your audience is. You have to have a persona. Like, you have to understand where these people are and what they do, what the in their everyday life. What brands do they like? How so you can understand them before you go and try to fit into a space that maybe, like maybe you're not their target. Maybe they're not your target audience. And I just always say to people, like, I'm like, I know it feels nowadays, it feels like a old school notion to say, we've got these personas, but I'm like, look, I've been
No, it's
making
critical.
personas for like 20 plus years and working and doing research and doing the research to understand. Because, like you said, the brand strategy and the audience research, like those are the most important things that you can do when you're trying to like figure out who you are and how you show up in the world to people. So,
I agree. I
yeah.
agree. And we have so many tools available to us to
Mhm.
really understand who we want to go and speak with.
Mhm. Yep.
And so, it used to be you had to have really large market research budgets to do
Yes.
this,
Yeah.
which, by the way, I still love. I
Yeah.
have some really strong partnerships with research companies, organizations like Radius, who are
Mhm.
fantastic at being able to make sure that we understand who we're going after or
Mhm.
the health of our brand.
Mhm.
Um, but there are other things out there too, right? So
Right. Mhm.
that used to be you could just go to social listening and say
Yeah.
who's engaging with the kinds of content I'm putting out there. What are they saying
Mhm.
about my brand?
Right.
What else are they saying? And so you can use social listening tools.
Mhm.
But now you have AI. And the amazing thing about AI is that it is changing any single category that is in the business of data and
Mhm.
knowledge
Mhm.
or is in the business of serving and interacting with people. Because increasingly, we're going to want, as people, to have a conversation based
Mhm.
interface.
Yeah.
And that's happening for market research. And you can go into AI and ask
Mhm.
it to tell you
Mhm.
what are you seeing. And in fact, some of the advances in market research are starting to create AI agents for the personas.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
so they're starting to play around with this notion of, well, instead of talking to a person, I will train it. I will make a virtual person
Right.
and then do concept testing with it and
Mhm.
ask what it wants.
Yep.
It's not going to be perfect, but if you feed it enough information
Mhm.
about who these people really are, it's going to get pretty darn close. And
Mhm.
that gets me really excited. Like
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of AI. I'm not against it. I'm playing around with it everywhere.
Yeah.
Um, but it also makes those insights, something that's available to more people than
Mhm.
ever before.
Yes. Yep. I agree. And I agree with you. I do. I do love playing in AI. Okay, let's talk about women entrepreneurs and why are so many women hesitant to promote themselves? Like what advice do you give for showing up confidently in business and marketing?
So, Kyra, this is one of the reasons I really wanted to have this conversation with you
Mhm.
today. I feel so passionate about raising other women up because
Mm.
um, it feels so hard.
Yes.
And I'm a corporate refugee. I was in house at Progressive. It was my
Mhm.
only corporate side job, but I was able to do it for 4 years, which if anybody knows me knows, that was a struggle in of itself. I'm not usually a cog that fits into the machine
Mhm.
easily, right? I'm usually the tinkerer that's making the machine. Um, and my experience in ad agencies and digital organizations in corporate America has been that um, women's voices are regularly ignored
Mhm.
in the meeting rooms.
Yes.
And what I've seen is that a woman can articulate very well an idea, an insight, a
Mhm.
recommendation, and a male peer can
Mhm.
say it again, usually not as well.
Right.
And the room will say, "That's such
Mm.
a good idea," to the male. And the woman sitting there thinking, uh, "That I just said that."
Yes.
And so it feels like we're not as important.
Mhm.
The other thing that I have seen so often is that to be heard, to be respected, women typically have to put in a lot more work and more
Mm.
hours and often more years to
Mhm.
get to that next level within an established organization than their male counterparts.
Mhm.
And so I think because of that, it hurts the confidence of the women
Mhm.
because they're looking at their male counterparts who have already gotten promoted. They're
Right.
looking at their performance reviews, they're looking at the contributions that their work is making to the organization,
Mhm.
and they're thinking, "What am I doing wrong?" Right?
Right.
It makes women
Mhm.
feel broken in
Right.
that world. And so the most interesting thing, and I will say I'm guilty of this too in a joyous way,
Mhm.
is that women typically wait until their 40s or 50s to start their own companies,
Mhm.
whereas men don't. And I should say
Mhm.
first companies because
Mhm.
oftentimes you're sort of a serial entrepreneur.
Mhm.
Men often start in their 20s and 30s. Well, all of the research shows that companies that are started by folks in their 40s and 50s are more likely to succeed than those started with people that are younger. And
Mhm.
so the great irony is women are actually poised to have greater success with the first business they launch because we tend to wait and
Mhm.
we tend to have worked harder to get to
Mhm.
where we are. And so that means that we are more prepared and we have
Mhm.
more experience than other founders. And so it's like flipping the narrative
Mhm.
and realizing that all of those times you felt invisible in the room, all of those times that your ideas were repeated and then
Mhm.
acknowledged,
Mhm.
all of the extra hours, the extra work, you are going to be better at it than other people. And so I hope that by having a conversation like this, it is allowing people, especially the women, to realize that the things that they thought were broken about them are in fact their secret powers
Yes.
and that that is the thing that they have to continue to go back into, right? It's almost like settling down and like knowing yourself to then have the courage to do that next thing
Mhm.
because you're going to be okay and it's going to be successful.
Mhm.
And I think that more women need to be launching businesses because I think when we do, we create a work culture that is more aware of the community greater good. And I also think that the world needs more of that.
Mhm. Mhm. Oh, I love that. I love that because whew, that was a you said so much because it's just so true. Like everything you said, like I felt in corporate, right? The oh, here's the idea. I've said it this way, old the male counterpart comes immediately and repeats the same thing and leaves out several things, but it's like, "Oh, that's great. Let's run with it."
Well,
And
and it's so frustrating, isn't
yeah.
it?
Yeah, because 'cause you're just kinda like, "What?" Or like you mentioned with the, the reviews. I can remember at one of my, previous, corporate jobs getting, like I got all 5s. Like, 5 was, like, the highest you could get.
Yeah,
My
for
boss
sure.
was like, "You get all 5s and blah, blah," and I was like, "Okay, so what does that mean for me next?" And she was like, "Oh, I mean, like, like you're just like, there's really nothing I can tell you that you need to do different." I was like, "But what does that mean for
Right.
growth?"
What's my
For
career next
yeah,
step
like
is what
what
you're asking.
yeah, like where
Yes.
am I going next? And she could
Yes.
not because there was nothing really outlined for the women in the company. Like the men on like you said, like something could happen and somebody could leave and then they'd be like, "Oh, well, let's just give it to this guy." Let's give all the new responsibility and give him a title change. And then meanwhile, the woman who has worked harder and, has been there longer, been more loyal to the company, all those things, it's like, okay, was I even going to
Yeah.
be in consider? And so I am so glad you said what you said because I think that there are a lot of women who, have been in corporate and who have suffered, sort of like in silence
Mhm.
because of these types of scenarios. And also with the women starting businesses of their own, like I'm right there with you. It's like, do it. Like, and I think like you come to it. I do love women starting businesses like later, and like it's not even later. It's like, in your 40s. Like you're not old.
We're still
Okay.
babies. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. You're still young girl, do it. Like, I mean, I love that because you're right. Like you've gone through so much especially if you're coming out of the corporate space. You've gone through so much, you've seen a lot, you've worked, you've learned, you have like probably learned more because you've had to do more. Like you said, you've had to work harder. So you've had to figure out ways to solve problems and come up with solutions. And you've probably taken all the classes and the courses and done all those things that other people, didn't do. So you are more equipped. And now you just need the confidence to just show up for yourself and step into that space and do it.
And I was really lucky. So my co-founder, Dino Catania, we had met over a decade ago. I think it's been 12 years actually. We have to keep on remembering that the years keep going. And he actually did an intervention for me
Mhm,
back in March of 2021. So we were all still emerging from COVID shutdown.
mhm,
And he said that enough is enough. And he reflected back to me. He said, "Look at how many people that you have made successful." He said, "Isn't it time for you to do it for yourself?"
mhm,
And then he
mhm,
was generous and said, "I will give you X amount of my time in order to make sure you actually do it this time." So of course I said, "Well, I have to think about that." I at the time was married, but I was the only one making any money. I had 3
mhm.
daughters and in middle school and beginning high school.
Yeah.
So I felt a lot of pressure and that was not an easy time, right? There's still
Right.
a lot of economic uncertainty.
Mhm, mhm,
And I think I gave it a day or 2 and I called him. I said, "Are you serious? Because I'm gonna do it with you." And I can't and we were really fortunate and have been that we were self-funded and our
mhm,
first couple of years were really good. But I've had to shift the business strategy a couple of times. I'm on my 3rd business strategy
mhm.
because the thing about being an entrepreneur when you haven't been one before is there isn't a model
Right.
for success.
Mhm.
And in order to compete, you can't repeat the model that corporate America has
Right.
because typically you're building something from some nothing and you
Mhm.
have to know how to have a vision for big but start small.
Right.
And having that flexibility. And I also think women have this perfectionism
Mhm.
problem where we don't want to show up because we've worked so hard, because we
Mhm.
feel unseen. We don't want to show up in a way that looks like it could be wrong or not perfect. But
Right.
that's not how business works. And so,
Right.
this notion of it's okay to try and fail and then try again, and it
Mm.
doesn't mean that you're broken or unable to do it.
Right. Yeah.
It's you're learning and improving.
Mhm.
And I think that's also a switch we have to turn off as women,
Mhm.
which is, no, this is not about getting the A plus on the paper. It's okay to
Mhm.
hand in a B minus. C grade still gets a degree,
Yeah.
right? And so, so it's okay to try again,
Mhm.
because that's life and that's real world, and we have to start saying that that's good. It's not bad.
Exactly. Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And I think even when I was like when I launched my businesses originally, I was still in corporate America at the time. And so but I had to have a different mindset as it related to like my own businesses. Like I had to just put things out there and see and then pivot and change. Versus like you said in corporate, it's like, you've got a very defined, it's like parameters that you work inside of. So you sort of know like what the goal always is this thing. But in your business, it's like, no, you get to be the creator of like what that looks like. So you have to like, you just have to be flexible and you have to be willing
Yes.
to, and you do have to you just have to show up. And you can't be afraid of like, if something fails, like if it fails, then okay, it failed. So either you're going to determine like, I'm going to refine it or I'm going to leave it here for a while or I'm going to move to something else. And so that is, I think, the thing that, you do have to, like you said, the switch that has to like happen for you when you go all in on your business.
Yeah, and you said something that I think is super important. So I'm gonna acknowledge that and build on it, which is you have to be able to pivot.
Mhm.
And so, what you made me think about is sports analogies.
Mhm.
And when you're an entrepreneur, you're working with a smaller team, things are going very fast. It's more like playing basketball,
Mhm.
right? Where there's not a set play. You have an understanding of the roles your teammates play within
Mhm.
the team dynamic, but you also have to understand, well, who's available? Who do I throw it to? So
Mhm.
you're looking and you're pivoting and you're trying to find the open, and then you have to do it quickly.
Mhm.
And sometimes that works and it doesn't. And sometimes you're going up the field or up the court and down the court. I think corporate America or an established business is much more playing American football, where
Mhm.
it's a larger team, there are established plays, people know the very specific
Mhm.
role they play, and it's like advancing a war. You take
Mhm.
the front until
Mhm.
you get the goal.
Mhm.
And that mentality, that game mentality has to shift when you are an entrepreneur or running an organization that is newer or younger, because
Mhm.
you don't have the playbooks and you don't have the big teams with the specialized roles on the field.
Mhm. Yep. Very true. I like that. Okay. So, Kat, what for a woman listening or watching us today who has this dream, but she feels intimidated, especially to start like what is the story? What's the brand? What's the first step you would encourage her to take?
I would encourage her to remember that the best things in life are often beyond that curtain of fear,
Mhm.
and that she should walk on through it. And for her to find her story that will be the foundation of her brand, that will inform her culture and the services she offers, the people she partners with. I would say gather your girl posse that is looking to look after you and ask them, so what makes me different,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? What makes me
Yeah.
shine?
Yeah.
Um, because when we have that group of women, which I'm very, very fortunate that I have,
Mhm.
we're the gal pals that are saying, "Girl, your crown's tilted," and we just kind of go like that,
Yes.
and straighten it for them. We help each other because there's a community that we have, and we're all working women, and we're all trying to do something and figure out what the better chapter is in the future.
Mm.
So have the courage to walk through the fear. Nobody that is doing this doesn't feel scared. And
Mhm.
have that girl posse around you that wants to lift you up, and together you will rise. Because when we group together, we can do amazing things.
Yes. All right, Kat, tell everyone how they can connect to you and where they can find out more about what you do online.
Well, I have a website. It's www.coologee.com. That's Coologee. I'm on Substack. You can look for Brand is Business, which is the thought leadership that I'm starting to build up there, or search for at Cat Holt on Substack, and then also on LinkedIn. So those are the three best places to find me. And I am always here to talk to a woman trying to figure out what they're doing next because I think that's really important.
Awesome. Well, I am going to transition us because honestly, I could talk to you like all day. But I am going to be out of respect for you and your time. I'm going to transition us to three things with Kat. I'm going to ask you three questions that just helps our audience get to know you even better. The first one is a two-parter. It's how do you start and end the day?
I start the day by making sure that my kiddos are up and are going and that my horde of animals get fed. So I actually start with domestic duties first.
Uh-huh.
But I end the day thinking about the gratitude and what did go well. Because typically there's a list of things to do, and a lot of it didn't get done because that's life.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so you kind of have to go to bed feeling like, okay, I can do this again tomorrow.
Awesome. All right, number 2 is, when this episode launches, will be in 2026. What's a goal or intention that you've set for yourself, as you think about next year?
A colleague of mine once said, I can do anything, but I can't do everything.
Mm, mhm,
And that is true. And so 2026 is about me finding the helpers to be able to build out this company to the vision I have
mm,
and to realize that I'm not going to do it on my own
mhm.
and that the strongest leaders are humble enough to ask for help.
Yes, yes. All right, awesome, I love that. And the third is where are you currently finding inspiration?
I am finding inspiration in my insatiable curiosity around why people are doing the things that they're doing, particularly in the socio political environment
Mhm,
that we're in.
mhm,
And I am that kind of person that thinks we should respect the humanity in each other
mhm,
and allow for differences, variation to live peacefully together.
mhm,
And so I am always finding ways to understand what helps people feel okay in the skin and the body and the mind and the soul that they're in, but also what is it that's making people so angry? And then what
mhm,
can we do a little bit differently? Because
mhm.
I can't change the world, but I can hopefully change a person's life or day in interaction every single day. And I think it's important for all of us to try to do that.
Yes, I love that. Well, Kat, I just have to tell you, I have loved this conversation
Right.
and loved chatting with you, and want to do more of it. But before I let you go, I have to ask you one last question is what are three things you would like our audience listening or watching to take away from our conversation today?
I think the first one is, girl, you can do it. You really can. The second one is figuring out who you are and who you stand for or show up for is really important. And that's work that should be done. I call it branding. You can call it whatever it is, but spend that time. And the third is find the helpers because at the very least, they're going to put a mirror in front of you and show you who you are in the best of days. And then kindly and with great support, tell you how you're not doing so great so that you can work on it and show up better tomorrow.
Awesome. I love that. Well, Kat, thank you so much for coming and sharing. And always know you can come back here in the future and share again.
I love that. Thank you.
Awesome. Stay tuned, everyone. Welcome back to the Glow Up Girl podcast. I want to thank Kat again for joining the show today. Such a great conversation. As I always say, I love, love, love Anytime I can talk about marketing, branding, strategy, all those things. If you'd like to learn more about Kat and the work she does and connect to her, you can check out the links in the show notes. If you'd like to learn more about Glow Up Girl, visit glowupgirl.com and sign up for our newsletter to get tools, insights, and inspiration for your glow up journey. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are at Glow Up Girl, so um, wherever you might be listening, don't forget to rate, review, and share. It helps more women find the show. And if you're on social, make sure you tag us in so we can cheer you on. All right. If you are saying that this is the year that I'm going to do podcasts, this is the year I'm going to do more speaking engagements, make sure you check out Story Labs at Glow Up Girl. So that is a 1.5 hour session where you and I get together and we figure out what is your story. So you know how you have a great idea, or you know that you're doing all these amazing things, or you're multi-hyphenate and you have all these things and you're trying to figure out what is the one story I should tell when I go pitch myself for pods, pitch myself for speaking engagements, etc. That will help you figure it out. We will figure that out together. So check out Story Labs tab on glowupgirl.com. All right. And if you are looking to partner with this brand to reach a community of women chasing big dreams, make sure you check us out. Glowupgirl.com. You can check out our sponsorship offering, or you can reach out at hello@glowupgirl.com. All right. Thanks again for spending time with me today. And I will see you all next week. So until then, stay focused, fab, and glow up. Take care, everyone.